and in today's episode we're going to be talking mostly about how we ID the different leopards from these camera traps, and also going through their olfactory, their scent marking communication, and how that benefits them and how they use it to find each other, just like these two leopards, Basile and Ravenscourt, have done here in the past over the past week. So when it comes to IDing leopards from the traps, there's a few ways or methods that we can use. Telling males and females apart is quite easy. The male is much larger than the female. It's got a much larger head, a very large neck, much larger neck. And then also, obviously, when he scent marks the bush, once he raises the tail, you can see the obvious there. So it's quite easy to tell male and female apart. But once you start going to same-sex animals and younger animals, then we'll go more into spot patterning, and also IDing them via spot or rosette patterns on their flanks. And also we know that when a camera trap's positioned in a certain area, that trap falls within a certain leopard's territory. So more than likely, if a female or male walks through that area, it'll likely be that individual. Although when it comes to males, their territories are probably about double the size of the female. So then we'll go straight to the ID patterns. And how we'll do that is we'll look at the facial markings on the leopard, and you look at the top whisker line in particular, and that's usually got a spot configuration in numbers, and you look at both the left side and the right side. So for instance, as you can see here, Basile is a 2-2 spot pattern. She's got 2 spots on her top whisker line on the left and 2 spots on the top whisker line on the right. So she'll be known as a 2-2 female. And then you'd also be able to look at other facial patterns, facial spot patterns, to get an ID, or maybe use markings, a scratch on the nose or a cut in the ear. Something like that can also help us. If spot patterning on the face doesn't work, sometimes the leopard walks too quickly past the camera, then we'll look at the flanks, and there you'll look for a particular grouping of rosettes on the leopard's flank. And what's important to remember is every leopard's coat is individual, but also that the left and the right hand side are different. So you've got to look at both sides on the camera traps if you can, and then you'll look for that particular patterning of rosettes to see if they match up, and then that's how we ID leopards via their flank.
So it's very important for my research on olfactory communication of leopards to be able to identify individual leopards, because it really helps me to understand what's going on and see patterns in scent marking behaviors. So here in the Sabi Sands, female territory is about 20-25 kilometers square in average, and a male territory is about 40-50 kilometers square in average. So leopards don't just bump into each other randomly on a daily basis. So visual communication doesn't really work. So olfactory communication allows leopards to leave persistent messages for intended receiver. And a great example of olfactory communication used for reproductive purposes was Basile and Ravenscourt scent marking intensively the same bush over a few consecutive days last week. And Basile was calling and looking for a mate as she was in distress, and she caught up on the scent of Ravenscourt and went looking for him. We saw them a few days later mating, and they continued mating for the next 4 or 5 days. So olfactory communication is important for leopards because it allows them to advertise their territory boundaries and minimize conflicts with one another, keep the reproductive status of potential mates in check, and also find one another when female come into distress.